for tuning back in with Sophia's Book Talk. Today we have a very special guest, Sebastian Junger. Hi, Sebastian. Thank you for coming here today. So he has a very famous book called The Perfect Storm. So why don't you tell us a little bit about the summary?
So The Perfect Storm is about the 1991 meteorologically perfect storm off of the New England coast, which is basically a combination of a northeaster and a hurricane that sunk the small fishing boat, the Andrea Gale, off of the New England coast. And that was my primary focus of the novel. The Andrea Gale, what the people on board were like, and how their lives led up to that moment in which they died.
Right, so what would you say was your vision writing this book?
I wanted to tell a true story about the men on board, but make it so that you knew everything about them. But I had to do this with dialogue that I wasn't able to get from the dead men. So I had to do this and stay close to fact as possible.
Okay, so what would you say was your vision writing this book?
My vision was to reconstruct the tale of the perfect storm and how it affected the members of the Andrea Gale, but I couldn't do that by interviewing the members as they have left us. So I had to go back and interview people close to the dead, and I had to reconstruct what would have happened using those details. And I recorded my interviews and quoted the individual, and thus I reconstructed it to the best of my abilities.
Right, so what would you say was the main conflict in this book?
So the main conflict is man versus nature, or in other words, the men dealing with the perfect storm and fighting it on a little swordfisher boat. And then other conflicts are like the need to make money from this boat, even though it's a very dangerous storm, a very dangerous situation all around, but they still have livings, they have mouths to feed.
So now we're gonna have time for some viewers' questions. So at Veronica Nawana asks, how would you characterize Billy Tyne, one of the very famous characters from this book?
So Billy Tyne is the stereotypical headstrong captain that prefers to live on the edge and not take the advice of like his bosses or like the owner of the boat. The only man or force he answers to is the force of nature.
Right, so at Ashley Griffin Loves Crabs asks, what qualities does it take to be a sword fisherman?
So they need to have a very thorough knowledge of the boat, because the boat has very many intricate riggings and equipment on it that you need to know how to use, and there are many accidents that involve it, so you need to know how to like think quickly when your life is in danger, and you need to have a good knowledge of storms and meteorological patterns at sea. And all of those qualities and more are what it takes to be a good sword fisherman.
Right. So at Lopez Loves Art asks, were there any portions of the book that challenged you to limit your story just to a narrative?
So the conversations that obviously took place while the boat was going down, and just in general on the boat of the Andrea Gale. And I reconstruct the disaster because nobody survived. So I have to go back and interview everyone in order to make it very true to fact. So because the crew did not maintain records and they weren't in radio contact with anyone when the disaster struck.
Okay, so that's it for the viewers' questions. Now, your book did have a lot of comparison to the movie Life of Pi. So what would you say are some similarities between the two?
So I believe that both are obviously about shipwrecks and being lost at sea. But mine deals with like experienced fishermen who are up against all odds, but Life of Pi is about a lone boy, a teenager, against all odds. Both deal with being with life or death situations where all the odds seem to be stacked up against you, but they do have their differences in the characters and the obvious differences between experienced fishermen and a teenage boy.
Right. So last question, had the book been a novel, how do you think you would have approached the story differently?
I believe that I may have had an easier time writing it. I could just look to my imagination for the information which to provide, but instead I had to do careful research, and this also gave me a deeper knowledge of the story in order to maintain a story that's close to fact.
That's it for today. Thank you so much for coming. And thank you all for tuning in. Now next week we will have a very special guest, Ashley Griffin, one of our most dedicated fans all the way from Missouri City. Thank you.